I'm audible? Is it working all right? That's the title of my presentation, and I am very pleased and honored to receive Dr.S.S.SIDHU award in 2013. And it is just a matter of coincidence that Dr. Sidhu was my head of the department, who retired 15 years ago, and I am the first recipient of this award. I work at AIIMS, and I have to show this picture that I am working at AIIMS Delhi. That is the whole idea of putting this slide. And this work was done in collaboration with IIT New Delhi. That's the dental center at AIIMS. And here we had been working on the temporary anchorage devices, which are called miniscrews, for last 10 years. And we know that success can be enhanced because there are a lot of failures. And I will be focusing on bit of, that is the kind of research we are doing, but I will be talking only about on the top one. We are talking about design and mechanical factors, how they influence the success. So we know we have a dental implant which looks like that, and over this we can make a crown, but we also have another kind of an implant which is a temporary implant, which is called orthodontic miniscrews. And they have certain differences, subtle differences in their design, and the most important thing is that they are osseointegrated, and they are not supposed to be osseointegrated. And these are available in various sizes, various shapes. Essentially they are a type of a screw, like any screw which you put on the wall, but they are these screws which are being put in the body. While the prosthetic ones we expect it will last for life, but the one which we put in the mouth for the orthodontic purpose should last only during the period of orthodontic treatment, which is usually 1 year or so. So the success of any screw which is put has many variations, but I will be focusing only on the design, and that on an FEM study. And these mini screws can be placed at different locations in the mouth. These are the common locations where we place, and of course we take anatomy into consideration when we place the screw. And one of the, we know the safe zones, which are the safe zones for placing the mini screws, and usually they have been decided usually by a cone beam CT, and in conventional practice we take an OPG or IOP X-ray to decide the locations, and these safe zones decide us also the size of the screw to be chosen. And these screws are required other than the conventional orthodontic for complex situations like this, where you have an impacted incisor which has not come through, or maybe you have multiple infections, or you have very severe degree of malformation like this, where you want to use retraction where conventional orthodontics will not work. So what we do, we just put a local anesthesia after having a lot of protocol, and we place a screw here, something like this, and these screws are usually connected with the molars, and they become an anchor for us to pull the teeth back, or do any three-dimensional tooth movement which is required in the mouth to put the malocclusion into an order. So let us look at one case very quickly before we go into the research. This is a boy who came to us. He doesn't like because his front teeth are too far forward. So I have put up a simple case because simplicity can explain things better. He has a large overjet which is about 12 millimeters, and then he requires his teeth to be pulled back. Conventional mechanism will not work because it requires a very large retraction. So we put up a screw here, we connect this to the molar, we put this 150 gram night-eye spring, which is close-cold night-eye spring, which gives a continuous force, and there are some other biomechanical considerations of torque and all that, because it's a dental subjects, medical students more here, so I'm just making it simple, and then you end up in a treatment stage which is like this. So this is a kind of an anchor mechanism which mini screw is used. But the problem is that all these mini screw fracture, and they fracture very often. And we need to decide that what kind of screw is good. And all these screws are made of titanium grade 5 alloy. They are not pure titanium because alloy gives us better strength. So with this boy who looked like that, looks like this now, and if you look at this cephalogram, that is the amount of retraction which has taken place and how his profile has become balanced after the treatment. And that's how his smile is. So you want me to show it again? Yeah. So his value in society is increased, but his function also is better in terms of mastication and in terms of breathing. So it doesn't only affect aesthetics, it has many more roles to play. So now what we wanted to do was that when we place this screw, it fractures. So we have many more things to do, but here I am focusing only on this, that what we did, that we created a 3D model, FEM model of the maxilla and the screw. And for this, what we wanted to do was that we wanted to know that whether the size and the shape, because we have a tapering screws and we have a cylindrical screws, and we have in different dimensions, do they really affect the amount of force they can tolerate and how much force they should tolerate. And we also wanted to know that where the most of the stresses are generated when we apply the forces. So what we did, we took up conventional screws, we used a scanning system, we created their 3D images, and initially it was a big study, but I'm focusing here on 1.4 and 1.6 mm, and two shapes, cylindrical and the tapered. And what we did was, and we also created a solid model of the bone, which is and this is simulated to the maxillary bone with 1 millimeter cortex here, and rest of the bone is here, and we place these screws at 90 degree and 45 degrees. And then these screws, and they have to be given material properties, because when you are doing FEM, you have to know the properties of the bone, and these properties are already decided from the literature, and these are the properties which are incorporated. And then there are some presumptions when you do FEM. FEM is not as close to the nature as it is, but you can't apply these forces and study it there, so you have to create a model. And in these there are certain assumptions which you have to make while doing FEM. And one of the assumptions is that the cortical bone, cancellous bone and miniscrews were defined as homogeneous, isotropic and linear. That is not in real sense, okay. And then the relationship between miniscrew and bone was 100%. And 3, that the boundary conditions were applied, and that means that all sides of the blocks were considered as fixed boundary. And then these are the numbers you get. Now these numbers don't make sense to most of us. So I'm trying to make this very, very simple. And what simple I'm trying to make it, I'm trying to show you that in all the screws, all types, and all the 4 sizes, most of the stresses were concentrated here near the neck region, both tapered as well as cylindrical. And when we looked at the bone, and in bone also, all the stresses were concentrated here. Now this is the area where there is a compact bone, and our screw is going from compact and inside the bone. Now that means that this part of the screw is not getting any stresses at all, or it is getting the least stresses. So that means that the length of the screw really doesn't matter. What encourage we are getting when we put the screw is mainly from the thickness of the compact bone. So here is the fulcrum, and that is where when we apply the force, it becomes a fulcrum and it bends. And when we looked at a little bit more carefully, we found that the most of the stresses were concentrated at the it is not working? It is working, yeah. So most of the stresses are concentrated in this region. And there are some stresses, graphs, and graph is that as you increase the force from 50 gram to 150 gram stage wise, the stresses increase in the cortical bone, and so and the similar pattern goes up in the miniscrew. So what do we conclude? The conclusions are very simple, that increasing the force magnitude results in increasing intensity of stresses, that is there, and it is increased both in mini plant and the bone. That is what we expected. But what is more important for us is that the diameter and shape does not affect the location and the distribution of the stresses in the miniscrew and surrounded simulated bone. So if in a nutshell we can say that the head of the screw is critical, but beyond head it is the junction of compact bone and the neck, which is very, very important area from the point of view of failures. So what we learn from this? What we need to learn from this, that when we need to modify the design in such a way that we change the load transfer not only from the neck but to the entire length of the screw. So this is the outcome of this study. That means that we have to look at the redesigning the whole appliance or the whole system. And this would obviously help in making a new kind of screw. Thank you.